Hey there, welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name's Robert Winters.
And I'm Judy Nathans.
And we have ourselves another guest here this week. Perhaps you should introduce yourself, sir.
Sure. My name's Paul Toner, and I'm a candidate for Cambridge City Council.
Yes.
Right, and we are
2017.
November 2017.
That's right, just in case.
Right.
This is archived and this is the year 3000. Today is June 27th,
June 27th,
2017.
2017. That's right. We should always say the date. I've learned that.
Right,
You never
yeah.
know.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about you, Paul.
Sure. So I am someone who grew up here in Cambridge. I can't claim to be lifelong because I actually spent my first 12 years in Somerville. My
I was
parents.
wondering about that. I was looking
Yep.
at your bio
My
stuff.
parents were
Yeah.
Cambridge people. They grew up here in Cambridge.
Okay.
My father was an East Cambridge guy, and my mother was a North Cambridge person.
So you're one
So
of us. Then.
Yeah.
Well, wait, I'm not from here either, so.
Well, I'm one of those people that, I'm very proud of my Cambridge roots, but
Yeah.
I've never been one of those people who feels that you have to be here for 5 generations to call yourself
Right.
Cambridge,
Well,
even though people
Somer-
rib me about it.
But
Right.
Somerville is practically,
Well, yeah, in Somerville, I lived in Somerville till I was 12, and when my grandfather passed away, we moved to the house I live in on Newman Street. So, and that actually, interesting, was my great-grandfather's house.
Yeah.
And
wow.
if you take a walk down the bike path in North Cambridge, there's a
Yeah.
little plaque, and that's my great-grandfather, because he was
Wow.
killed right there when he dove out to try to save somebody who was crossing the railroad
Oh
tracks.
my gosh.
So,
Jeez.
so that was back in like 1910 or
So
Wow.
you are well rooted in that part of
I
Cambridge.
would
yeah,
say so,
pretty rooted
yeah.
in North Cambridge. But I've had, wonderful experiences throughout the city. I grew up, as I said, in North Cambridge. I went to the old Fitzgerald School for middle school, and then I went on to Matignon High School.
Got K to 8 then.
Got K to 8,
Right. It
yes.
wasn't no
You know, according to Glenn Kuchar, that's a true sign of a true Canterburyan when
What?
you refer to schools as the old Fitzgerald or the old Maynard.
That's right.
Or
That's
the,
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still have to explain to my friends who moved out of town,
Yeah.
the whole school merger closure thing back in
Right.
That's,
2001.
that's a tough thing
It
to
is.
explain.
It is. If they have an hour over a beer, I can walk them
Yeah.
through it. But
Right. Yeah.
And then you went to Matignon.
I went to
think.
Matignon, and then I stayed local for college. I went to BU for my undergrad, and I went to, then decided, growing up, it was really about the people in my community were all police officers, firefighters,
Yeah.
a few lawyers. It was very, working class.
A lot of North
neighborhood.
Cambridge.
A lot of North
Yeah.
Cambridge, a few politicians here and there. And,
Tip O'Neill.
yeah, and my heroes growing up were Tip O'Neill and JFK and, a few other folks in the neighborhood. Martin Luther King was an inspiration to me. And I always knew I wanted to give back to the community and do something. It was never about money. In fact, I didn't know too many people that had money, so I didn't know you could go out and make money. It was about what am I going to do to give back to the community? And, I had lots of role models and teachers and other public
Yeah.
service areas. And my teachers really did have a huge impact on me. They're the ones that kind of planted the seeds that, maybe you could be a good teacher someday. And, a couple of my teachers were teachers but went to law school nights, which was another dream I had. So that stuck in my head. So I went to BU,
Yeah.
decided I was going to go teach, and while teaching, get my law degree. And that was how I was going to
So you were going to law school while you were teaching?
I was teaching, yeah.
Wow.
So my dad died when I was 15, so it was
Oh,
and I'm the
sorry.
oldest of 4 boys, and
Ooh.
my mom helped us get through undergrad, but after that we were on our own, so there was no way I was just gonna afford to go off to law school
So
on my own.
You were the oldest at
Yes.
So you had younger brothers?
Yeah, I had
who
3
lost
younger
their dad.
brothers.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
That's hard.
We all
Wow.
turned out great.
You're one of 4 brothers?
One of 4. One of my brother Scott did pass away 2 years ago from cancer, but
Oh.
I'm one of 4 brothers, and my brother Rick passed away earlier this year.
yeah, so-
Wow.
Yeah, so we're the 4 brother.
Yeah.
Is your
club
mom
here.
still with
she
you?
is.
Oh,
She
good.
lives up in Arlington.
Actually, wasn't her name associated with it? Was a publication I saw?
At North Cambridge.
Yeah.
The Steve Surratt magazine that he does.
Yeah.
The whole story about my great grandfather is
Oh,
in one of
okay.
the first issues.
So that's
of that
her
magazine.
on her side.
Yes, yeah. Her name was name is Ethel Mullally, and her sister is Claire Mullally, who is now Claire Albert, and they live on Magoon Street.
The Alberts, another family.
Yeah,
from
I'm
North
very
Cambridge.
very proud of my cousins who
Right.
are all police officers and firefighters
Yeah.
here in the
Wow.
city of
I know a
Cambridge.
few of
Really?
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah? Oh,
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I went on to BU, and I decided to get my teaching certificate. So I went to UMass Boston. And interestingly, we hear how hard it is to find teaching positions now. Like we just can't find enough teachers. Back then, it took me 2 years of substitute teaching and working nights
Well,
at
that
WI
was
Grace
back
Chemicals.
then.
Yeah, that was back in 1990.
Yeah, a little
I
different.
finally got a full-time
Yeah.
teaching job at the Harrington, the old
Yeah,
Harrington
the
School.
old Harrington.
and I taught there for 9 years as a
goodness.
middle school social studies teacher.
Wow.
So it was entirely studies, social studies?
I did some language arts as well, so I actually, we
So these
kind
were
of
the
turned
older
it
kids?
7th and 8th grade,
Seventh,
so
eighth,
13, 14-year-olds.
Right.
And I wanted to be a high school teacher, but
Yeah.
I ended up falling in love with the middle school. And a lot of people are like, oh, how could you work
Yeah.
with middle school kids? But,
Yeah.
they're still young enough that they want to hang out with you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
old enough that you can give them some independence.
Interesting, yeah.
But I went to Suffolk Law School while I
Yeah.
was teaching nights. And I never, envisioned it, but I started getting more involved with the Teacher Association here in Cambridge. And I ended up running to be the president of the Cambridge Teachers
Right.
Association, and I did that for 5 years and dealt with things like closing emerging schools
Right.
and teacher evaluation issues and
Well, I mean,
block scheduling at the high school.
A lot of us really got to know your name really through that role.
Yeah.
In fact, the reputation that I heard for many people was you were sort of you broke the mold in terms of people who were running the teachers union or teachers association there, in that it wasn't just about protecting jobs; it was about doing the right thing and
Right.
getting, making the schools better, even if it meant taking a hit here and there.
Yeah.
And that was you were a mediator.
Well, I got involved because I had, at that time, my 6-month-old daughter, Grace, and I knew she was going to be going to the Cambridge Public Schools, and
Right.
we were going through this period where a lot of people were leaving, especially the middle schools, and going to the suburbs or private.
So you
and
just told me now when that was. I was going to ask you when it was, but she's 18 now?
she
so-
just graduated from
Okay,
Rington Latin,
so is it-
just
so
last
this was
week.
like
was it, or-
2000 that you were the teacher?
2001,
Okay.
I became
Oh,
the
wow.
president, but it
That's
was
when my daughter
1999 is
started
when
high
she,
school.
yeah.
But that was not a great time for her to start high school. That's when all the changes happened.
That's exactly. There was
Yeah.
a lot of things
Tough
going on.
transition.
That's one of the
Every-
reasons
yeah,
I ran
every-
to be president.
Yeah,
was to
every
try to
year
work
she
on
was
that.
there was a change.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
high school changes, then there was consolidation of the elementary
But they've gotten rid of all
schools.
the honor rolls
Yeah.
classes, and they have the
Yes.
experimental times.
So a lot of change all at
Yeah.
once, and that
So
was
you were
causing a lot
involved
of
then, yeah.
issues. But
Yeah.
I ran and got involved because if my children were going to go to the schools, I mean, I wanted them to be good for everybody. But if my kids were going to go to schools, I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure that we would, the union, I felt,
Yeah.
should play a role in improving the schools. I'm all for the bread and butter issues. I negotiated many contracts and dealt with labor relations issues, but I also felt that we should be putting forward our solutions and working on that. I did that for 5 years, and then I went on to the Massachusetts
Right.
Teachers Association as
So
vice
it was
president.
basically a larger,
The statewide union.
Statewide.
There's two, but MTA is the biggest. So I represented pre-K through higher ed teachers and professors and staff all throughout the state. Brought the same sort of attitude to the job that we should be really leading change in education rather than feeling like we're always the victims of the change.
Right. Always playing defense.
Yeah,
right?
always playing defense. And I feel like we did a lot of great work for 8 years. We got to work with Governor Patrick and, had the rare opportunity to meet with senators and presidents in that role. And
so you had two different administrations you overlapped, right?
yes, Governor
Yeah,
Romney
Bush.
and then
Well,
Patrick,
in
and
terms
then
of federal,
correct.
right.
It was the tail end of George Bush,
yeah.
and then the most of the time was 6 years with
Right.
President Obama. And I think we did a lot of great work in very challenging times during the Great Recession, and
Yeah.
lots of pushing for reforms. And again, we tried to lead the change rather than let people dictate things to us. And then in 2014, we have term limits, so I couldn't do that anymore.
Oh,
And,
term limits for that position?
yeah, we have term limits, so I couldn't run again. And I've been doing education consultant work and working with different education organizations
Yeah.
the past few years.
So the question of the hour, whatever possessed you to decide you
Yeah.
want to be a city council candidate?
I've always been interested in being on the city council. I've been involved in campaigns and local politics since I was 10. The first time I worked on a campaign,
Yeah,
my
I
uncle...
think I read that. Wait a minute.
Well, the first time was...
Yeah, David Marr?
Well, that was not the first time,
Oh,
because
okay.
when I was 10, my uncle gave me $10 and said, go hold a sign for Mike Dukakis.
Oh,
on
okay.
Mass Ave. So that was the very first
Yeah.
political campaign I worked on. But then I worked on Lenny Russell, Sheila Russell.
Oh, okay.
I was also friendly with David when Sheila stepped down and David
Right.
decided to run. So at that time, my daughter
Right.
was 6 months old,
Right,
so I
I
spent
know,
my
it was 18
summer
years ago,
walking
yeah.
around door knocking with a baby. for David. And then, you know, I always thought about the possibility of running for city council.
Not school committee, because you felt like you'd been there, done that, or?
That's
Yeah.
part of the reason I'm not, because
Yeah.
people have asked, why don't you run
Yeah.
for school committee? And it's not been there, done that. I feel like there are
Yeah.
several good
It's a
candidates
lot,
running, and
yeah.
and you know, on the city council, there's some great people running for city council too. But when David announced he was not going to run, you know, I thought if I was ever going to do it, you know, this was
It's
the
a good
time to do it.
position,
And you know, a lot of people lament the state of politics today, and I want to be part of the solution. You know, everybody talks about the polarizing dialogue, and you know, my trade has been, you know, bringing people together, labor managed relations, consensus building, trying to find proactive solutions. So I feel like I can add that set of skills
Yeah.
and those experiences.
No,
to
I
the
think
city
it's great that
council.
you have the educational background, because I think that is important as a city councilor, because you're looking at all that.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of the roles that different city councilors play, I mean, I'm not the only one who's pointed this out, but, you know, David Marr had a reputation on the city council as something of a moderator, you know, would sort of facilitate things and, you know, help to make things happen and bridge some gaps. And,
Yeah.
you know, most of the people who know you have pretty much said that you would actually match that role pretty well,
I hope so.
you know, so, you know.
They
it's-
need that
it's-
on the council.
you know, every once in a while, the group up there, they you know, it's sort of like you know, the sun comes out and everybody's so happy and everybody gets
Kumbaya,
along and
yeah.
joke with each other.
Yeah.
You know, and then there are other times when it's
Yeah.
very, very contentious. You know,
Yes.
so you never really know.
Well, and I also have a reputation of being willing to have coffee or beer with anybody, and I have, you know, I've met with some people that people like, why would a union leader be meeting with that person? And I've met with them because when you sit down and talk with them, what they're truly trying to accomplish, there's, you know, an awful lot of commonality, and how can we move forward with those issues without having a big fight over it. And I think I've been pretty successful at that. And if I can bring that to the council, and I think, you know, the council has had some challenging times lately, you know, from observation, from what I've heard. I think people have to sort of step back, think about what are the real goals that we as a city want to have going forward, and how can we best support the residents of Cambridge, and work together on the plan rather than coming in with 9 different plans,
Right.
9 different sets of goals. We should really be working on a consensus set of goals.
You know, one might argue that, you know, ever since the demise of the Cambridge Civic Association, when there were sort of clearly, there were good and bad aspects of having sides of the, you know, the CCA side of the
And the
politics and then the
independents.
independents on the other side. And that you might think that, oh, that could be really contentious, but it also gave an opportunity for people who are on a side to actually work collaboratively and come up with ideas and plans and programs and push things. One of the things that's kind of happened in the years since is that we sort of have 9, what do they used to say about the Boston Red Sox? 25 guys, 25 cabs. So, you know, sometimes it's nine counselors, you know, in 9 separate spheres, you know.
Well, hopefully going forward, you know, with the new council, and I hope to be part of it, that, you know, we can go forward together as 9 city councilors working in unison. Some of us will have different emphases that we want to bring forward, and, you know, I might not, you know, have deep interest in that issue, but if you do, I should respect that and work with you on that and see how it figures into the broader puzzle for Cambridge. I mean, we have plenty of issues. We're very lucky. I mean, I think everybody in Cambridge realizes how lucky we are to live in a city that is so well resourced and has so many people that want to help and support the kids in the city and the people in need in the city. But there are a lot of things that we could be doing better. Some of the
Like?
areas, some of the areas, I mean, as you know, I live right on Mass Ave, right next to the Arlington line.
Oh, that
I'm not
whole
going to
area,
promise
yeah.
that I'm going to fix traffic in Cambridge. However,
Yeah.
I think as a city, we need to be reaching out to Somerville and Arlington and Watertown and all the folks who are driving through our city and figuring out some sort of a regional plan around traffic and
Yeah.
the bicycle safety issues. And quite honestly, you know, we can do more on affordable housing, but all those other communities have to do more around creating more housing options as well, because not everybody's going to be able to own so many square footage
Right.
in Cambridge. We're going to have to share the housing burden, and you know, that's something that I'd like us to really approach from a regional basis.
One of the points I've made multiple times with the Envision Cambridge group is that one of the best things to help housing affordability in Cambridge, which is not always the same as affordable housing.
Yeah.
Just general affordability is, if a lot of new housing appeared in places like Union Square, Somerville, or over in Alston, Brighton, so that people had other choices. So this way, if somebody says, "Oh, I'd like you to give me $5,000 a month for this shack," you can say, "No, sorry, I'm going to Somerville," and then they say, "Okay, we'll."
However, it's getting, I mean, if you look around, first of all, there's a lot of building going on the outskirts. If you look around, oh, what's that new building going? Everywhere.
Right.
Alston, Brighton, Somerville, and I don't know if they're affordable, and a lot of them are rentals. So, I mean, I agree with you, we have to do some solution, but it is getting expensive everywhere around, anything close to here.
I think we also have to,
Yeah.
be forward thinking and reimagine what housing is and looks like. I mean, I happen to live in a 100-year-old wood frame house.
Right, not everyone needs
Is that what,
right.
is that house still going to be here 50 years from now? Is that the kind of house people are going to want 50 years from now? Or are we going to be thinking about the future of dwelling spaces differently? I get the sense that the newer generation doesn't like having all the clutter around the house that some of the older folks
Well,
do.
there seems always trends, like everyone out to the suburbs, and then they come back to city, and I'm wondering if somehow it's gonna go back again, who knows, when people say it's too congested,
Well,
it's too much.
Judy and I were at a conference last summer about driverless vehicles, and they said, I don't personally see that happening right away, but if it did, it would actually give an incentive for people to live further away.
Yeah,
So things change.
that could be problematic. I mean, the other issue is I do not want to be dictating to the school committee from the city council. I want to work collaboratively with them, and one of the reasons I have chosen city council as opposed to school committee is because I do understand the issues in the schools and the school committee side, and there's a lot of great things happening. There are things that can be improved, but many of the things that impact the kids who are most in need are all the social services, all the after-school services, all the housing issues. And one thing people should know is if I get elected, you get 2 for 1, because my wife actually is Susan Conley, and she works for Mass Housing Partnerships.
Oh, okay.
And she's on the Cambridge Housing Authority, so she's my expert on all things housing and
For
development.
one.
So, yeah.
I remember hearing that back in the 90s.
Maybe I should put that on the bucket.
I like it.
I like that.
Both for one, 2 for 1.
Yeah. Worked for Clinton, sort of, But,
Well, I think all the elected officials bring their own special backgrounds and talents. It's always sort of an interesting way of cobbling together sort of an interesting working group. We've had times we had Kathy Bourne was an architect on there. We have Dennis Carlone plays a role in many ways now. It's nice to have a person that's an architectural background. It's really good to have people who have backgrounds in housing or advocacy in housing as well. It's just sort of nice. It's nice if some people have legal training and such. You wouldn't want to have 9 lawyers either, though, right? So it's always best when it's.
Would it get any done if there was 9 lawyers on there?
No, I don't think so. Right? Make a lot of sausage, though.
I mean, other big issues are just really trying to tackle the opioid problem here in Cambridge and supporting families. Tragically, I've had some former students who have succumbed to it, and we've lost them. But not just students. I have friends of mine in their 40s and 50s who are falling prey to this, and we really need to figure out how can we support the families and the victims of it and help them get off of it, and also provide the resources for our emergency responders and folks to deal with that issue.
I'm going to speak very much politically right now. I remember back in the old original Cambridge InsideOut with Glenn Kuchar, Sandra Graham would always ask anybody who was a candidate, say, "So what's your base? What's your political base?" Right? In other words, who do you think would be the people who would be most likely to be drawn to you as a candidate, or maybe people who you're going to particularly target? Not to give anything away.
No. I mean, very broadly, hopefully people who are looking for somebody who can approach problems with a common sense approach and really dig into the details and try to develop policy that is aimed at solving the problem as opposed to political posturing. I mean, hopefully that's what they're looking for in a city councilor. Reach out to those folks. I have a lot of friends and colleagues in the education community that live here in Cambridge. Many former MTA members that live here in Cambridge. So I'll certainly be reaching out to the education crowd. I'll also be reaching out to folks in my neighborhood, really doing grassroots door knocking in North and West Cambridge, and as much as I can in the rest of the city, I'll be reaching out to across the city. And I've already started having the house parties and the campaign events. Hannah, my campaign manager, and I were just out door knocking in my neck of the woods the other night and getting a great response. But again, it's really, if you're looking for somebody who comes and approaches the issues that we face and is going to try to work across perceived or real barriers, that's who I am. I like to think I'm like the Tip O'Neill, Ronald Reagan days. Whether that's true or fiction. People talk about it all the time. I like to believe that they fought by day and were able to go have a beer at night and
play cards.
Yeah, and play cards.
Tip O'Neill would go play cards with Reagan. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think we have to fight either. I think we have to be hard on the issues, but not on the people. And I always say, we can disagree without being disagreeable, and that's the way I like to operate. Is really, we might never reach agreement, but there's no reason to make it personal and attack one another.
One thing I've sort of noticed over the years is there are some people who actually come to city council candidacy with their issues sort of in the bag, but for the most part, it's the issues sort of come to you. I mean, the truth is, it's like, for example, right now there are people talking about short-term rentals. It's not like somebody has to sort of come in here saying, I'm gonna vote for me and I'm going to do something about short-term rentals.
It wasn't even an issue.
It wasn't even an issue. The thing is, oftentimes councilors just have to be representatives, and when people who you can trust, who when things arrive, when events happen, when crises develop, they're just well suited to actually just deal.
Yeah, and
it's about the person and more than the issue.
Absolutely. So I remember when I was teaching at the Harrington School. Email had just started. We didn't even know how to use email yet. And when you think about just the technology in the last 10 years,
media.
and
oh my gosh.
when people tell me Facebook's only been around for 8 or 9 years, it's amazing to me.
Well, more than that. My daughter
about
was
15.
15, okay.
It was
But it's
only
just
for
amazing.
college students at first. So, so about you're
Yeah.
right, about 10.
No, I signed out of Facebook because it grew out of Harvard originally. And,
Right, and then it was just for college students, and it
Yeah,
opened up
yeah.
immediately for other people.
So there are going to be these kinds of issues that fall into our lap, but I also believe in the lunch bucket issues. Like, I want to be there for constituent services. I want people to know that they have somebody at City Hall they can call, and there'll be 9 other people too. But that if they need to talk to somebody, that I'll be there. I also. Just want to be there to be supportive of their individual issues as we go forward.
So,
and I also want to make sure that I think we have great city services and great staff in the city, but we can always do better, especially in sort of the customer relations, and make sure that people are getting responded to. One of the things on the education side of things, which I started to say, was we have so many nonprofits and organizations here in Cambridge, all great people that want to help and want to, make sure that every child and every family has what they need. I know there have been attempts. I know there are still attempts, but we really need to figure out how we can effectively round those folks up and use them in a more targeted way to make sure that everybody's getting what they need.
Yeah, it's been interesting with mitigation that came about through zoning arrangements and whatever. It's actually led to this needs assessment that they did recently, where they're actually assessing what the various nonprofit partners really need. So we may actually well be heading toward a period where things are done a little bit more systematically and effectively.
I'd like to push the state a bit more too, and not necessarily push, but work with our legislators, with Representative Decker and Representative Rogers and Representative Conley and others in the city, and our state senators to really. I know they've got plenty of work to do, but as I said, many of the issues we're dealing with are regional, and we should be going in with a common set of objectives and plan.
Yeah, and that's certainly a theme we've been seeing with the Envision Cambridge process, is a full-blown acknowledgement of the fact that Cambridge, we can come up with the best ideas of all, but ultimately everything is still a lot of regional. Housing can't be solved town by town. Transportation can't be done town by town. Yeah, it's just the way it is. Yeah.
So do you see this as a full-time job?
I am going to stay involved in education by day. So I I will be your full
You'll be very
time.
busy then.
I will be very. And if you
Yeah.
ask my wife, that's just the way I've always been.
All right.
I'm definitely always been of the opinion that city councilors, as long as they're young enough to be working, they should be working and doing the city councilor. I just think it rounds out the job a
It's
lot
great,
better.
but it's a very generous, I mean, we reward our counselors very well, plus you have a full-time assistant, so.
Yep. Yep.
It's a lot.
Yeah, no, I acknowledge that and I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But I'm gonna continue to do work in education, but you'll have a full-time service from me. That's for sure.
So I think I think what you said last week on the program was that nobody's really a candidate until they pull papers
Oh, right.
and turn them in,
Yep.
and then get on the ballot. And again, just as a sort of public service announcement to all. And you'll be there, I assume,
July
bright and early on July 3rd.
Yep.
July 3rd, that's right.
Yeah, one of the great traditions, I don't know if it'll still hold there, but it was Tim Toomey and Freddie Fantini would show up like on the first day, and they would try and be like the first to get their papers in like within a day, and they would try and make sure they got every one of their signatures were valid.
Well, I certainly don't want to make any mistakes, and I will do. My goal is to get them in, early.
Can people sign more than one person?
No.
So you have to tell them that
Well,
when
you
they
know,
sign it.
actually, it's
Well-
something people need to understand is
Yeah.
because you can, if you sign more than one person's papers for city council
Yeah.
or for school committee, the first one counts, and any subsequent one they say, sorry, your name's already been
So
created.
So if you sign for me
Yeah.
and Robert, whoever
Yeah.
races to the.
Yeah, that's right. It's a race,
I
race
see.
to the election
Okay.
commission office. So.
I heard you on the show a couple of weeks ago say it used to not be that way.
No, well, no. The thing is, actually, ever since I think pretty much early on, they give you a maximum
Oh,
of
the
100.
limited.
Yeah,
that
because
was-
if you were a Walter Sullivan, you could go out and get
Right,
1,000
right,
signatures and
right,
make it hard
right.
Yeah.
for somebody else
Yeah.
to get on the
Yeah.
ballot, right?
Yeah,
So that was
exactly.
the rule. Anyway, we only got another half
Yeah,
a
do you have
minute
anything
here, so-
coming up, any events that
I'm actually having a old-fashioned cookout in my backyard. When I was door knocking yesterday, invited everybody in my general neighborhood. But anybody out there that would like to come to 24 Newman Street in North Cambridge on July 23rd for a cookout to
is
meet
that
and
on your
greet the
website?
candidate.
You have a
I
website?
haven't. It will go
Oh,
up. I haven't
okay.
done that yet.
All right.
Well, I just thank you so much for the
Yeah, thank
opportunity.
you.
And
All
remember
right.
to vote number 1 toner on
That's right.
November 7th.
Remember, it's always the number one.
Right, yes.
See
Thank
you.
you.
See you shortly.